There is no salvation to be found here, only the gradual undoing of all that you are.
Hey guys, so today I want to make a new video on the new insane breach strategy. As you saw in the intro, this strategy is really insane. You spawn like 9,000 plus monsters a map, your screen flickers, monsters go out of the game essentially, you can't see anything. It's pretty insane, both intense on your gameplay because a lot of focus, and on your PC. If you don't have a good PC, you probably can't run this strategy, but it's definitely by far as we know, probably the best raw currency farming strategy in the game. I'll go over some data real quick. ckaiba was the first person I've known who has done this. He's a Slavic player, and with his test, he did 33 maps in 1 hour. And with 33 maps in 1 hour, he got 32 raw divines and 33 raw exalts. That's an insane amount of raw currency for a single hour. I also did this test myself. I did 20 maps an hour before swapping to my big AoE setup. With my big AoE setup, I can get like 25 to 27 maps an hour. But in this test with 20 maps an hour, I only got 35 divines an hour with 15 raw divines. A lot less impressive when you're not doing as many maps an hour. And I also got 2 icy brothers. If I didn't drop this would have been less than 30 divines an hour, which is substantially worse than Abyss. So I really think the strategy is only worth it if you're doing around 25 to 30 maps an hour. Otherwise, you're probably better off sticking with other strategies. But I still want to go over everything here. What to run on your maps, what scarabs to use, Atlas, all that. So yeah, this is the data. I'll have a link down below, of course, of my Atlas tree and all that. So yeah, 20 miles an hour, we got 35 miles an hour with a pretty lucky 2 IC brothers. So what is the scarab setup for the strategy? You're using 1 with scarab, 2 risk, 1 escalation, and 1 corruption scarab. When you over sustain maps and you get massive juicy high more currency with stuff like this, 266% more currency, you want to swap out the 2 Cardo scarabs for another risk and another whip scarab. This will give you like maximum chance of getting those mirrors and hidden course locks. Just make sure not to swap out too often because you want to be self-sustaining with both escalation and both corruption scarab. In terms of the map you're running dunes, of course, because it's probably the best breach map. It's also pretty easy to buy these in bulk if you need to at the start. And they're also just really open, so very, very good for stuff like kinetic blast. In terms of build diversity, I really think there's probably only 2 good builds for this. And it's mostly builds that can use Etch's mirror shield. Because you're killing like 9,000 to 10,000 monsters a map, you get absolutely insane value for this. So much value that this Etch's mirror shield beats out my mirror tier scepter for this farm. It gives me more damage. That's how insane it is. And because of that last line, it's 1 to 10 lane damage for each shocked enemy you killed recently. That is generic lightning damage. So it works for explode and held of ice, which is very, very hard to scale. So yeah, this shield is absolutely insane for the farm, whether you're KB or Penance Brand, which in my opinion is probably the only 2 builds that can probably do this. Maybe some of the Ignite Prolift build can do this, but I haven't seen it yet. Either way, KB is definitely the best. Penance Brand is probably the second best, and then maybe some Ignite Prolift is makes a good build for that. Despite it being tier 60.5, because you're doing all tier 17 modifiers with Risk Scarab and Delirium, these monsters can get very, very tanky, and they just do close quite fast. So you have to be a very, very fast clear speed build. probably in the multi-mirror range to actually make this viable and work. You go over the Atlas real quick. I have a link down below. Of course, there's two options here. There's the easier no delirium setup, and there's the harder, full deli setup. Deli does make the monsters a lot more tanky, but it does make the map more rewarding. I'm still unsure how much deli actually adds, because delirium should not affect breach monsters, just the natural monsters in the map. And most of the monsters you kill are actually breach and beyond monsters. Either way, Atlas tree is pretty standard. You're just picking up all the beyond nodes. It's very, very strong for this strat. Map sustain nodes as you want to sustain your tier 60.5s. And you do drop a lot of tier 17s. A very few scarab nodes. You don't really drop that many scarabs. And of course, then breach nodes. Get a 100% breach chance and get this really nice breach reel. I have evasion for more breaches. That's pretty much about it for the whole Atlas. Not much going on here. The other Atlas, this is the Delirium one, which is a little bit harder. Essentially, you take out some quant nodes, you take out some pack size nodes, and you get Delirium with a 100% spawn chance. This one is a lot harder because of Unending Nightmare. You can maybe try this without Unending Nightmare, and maybe it's still quite worth it. I didn't try myself, but this does really make the monsters way more challenging. It doubles the difficulty scaling, so they get pretty tanky really fast. Make sure you also take a singular focus. Also, very important, you need to have your 3 new pinnacle bosses slain for the Atlas quest complete. So your Atlas needs to look like this, or you want to sustain tier 16.5. You want a full Atlas completion in all 12 favorite slots, or you just won't self-sustain your maps. But yeah, if you have all that, you do easily self-sustain. As you can see here, I have a bunch of Abundance 8 mod dunes that I got all from this strategy. It is pretty easy self-sustain. And then when you over-sustain, like I said, you swap in the Risk Scarab and Whiff Scarab instead of the 2 Cardos, and you try to run your high more currency maps to try to get those high Raw Divine drops. But yeah, that's mostly about it for this strategy. It is definitely, at least so far, the best raw currency strategy in the game. So it has the highest chance to drop mirrors or Hidden Chorus locks. The issue is it's extremely hard to run. I'm personally not even running on stream because, the flickering on the screen, the constant lag, it's just not very fun to play, or honestly not even very fun to watch, especially for streaming. Maybe they fixed the flickering, which they said they would in the patch. I'll go back to the strategy. It is extremely good if you want to do it, but you will need a very high-end build and also probably a very high-end PC as well. But yeah, that's about it.